This morning's lectionary text is Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 to 30. You're invited to follow along on the screen or in your pew Bible as I read. Don't follow the screen. Okay. Well, I say that because those worshiping online will be seeing our text on their screens. I'm glad you're paying attention. For it is as if a man going on a journey summoned his slaves and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. The one who had received the 5 talents went off at once and traded with them and made 5 more talents. In the same way, the one who had the 2 talents made 2 more talents. But the one who had received the 1 talent went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. Then the one who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more talents, saying, "Master, you handed over to me 5 talents. See, I have made 5 more talents." His master said to him, "Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." And the one with the 2 talents also came forward, saying, "Master, you handed over to me 2 talents. See, I have made 2 more talents." His master said to him, "Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." Then the one who had received the 1 talent also came forward, saying, "Master, I knew that you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours." But his master replied, "You wicked and lazy slave. You knew, did you, that I reap where I did not sow and gather where I did not scatter? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one with the 10 talents. For to all those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. As for this worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." So ends today's reading.
It's also intimidating to sing in front of the arranger, but I think the choir did a fine job. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm just going to come right out and say it. The essence of this message is really not about doubling our money and accumulating wealth. So I'm sorry to disappoint some of you. It's about investing our lives in things that matter. It's about taking risks like Jesus does, which is intimidating as well. He, after all, risks it all, right, and gives it all for us. So today's text is mostly about what Jesus hopes and expects of us after he's crucified. So it's about being a follower of Jesus as opposed to just a fan. So finally, it's about you and me. And the greatest risk, it turns out, is to play it safe with our lives. Jesus' parable is clear. The outcome of playing it safe is something akin to death, right? It's like being banished to outer darkness. Yes, we can live and not risk deeply loving others. Yes, we can choose not to risk loving passionately. We can opt to not risk trying something new out of our comfort zone. We can choose to bury our candy in a hole. But it's cold and dark down there in such places. And I'm just going to say, I'm thrilled. I am thrilled to see light, not darkness, light shining brightly at MBCC. I'm inspired to see many of you taking risks. You are investing in a variety of ministries. You are caring deeply for others. You are loving passionately, and it moves me. And I think the more that each one of us realizes that we are created to do this, to do good works, the more energy and passion and love and joy will be felt in our lives. And I'm sure the kids are going to experience it this morning as they're packing away all that candy thinking, oh, that's my favorite one. I'm putting it in. There's the Snickers and there's the, And at the end of it, though, there's going to be more satisfaction and joy in being able to give than to chew it all down and be sick for breakfast or lunch. The scriptures say, for we are what he has made us, created in Christ Jesus for, drum roll, Ephesians 2:10, good works, which God prepared beforehand to be our way of life. So this is supposed to be every Christ follower's way of life, not just the church leaders, right? Not just the ministers. Think about the good works that you do. And then think about the spiritual impact of those good works. As Jody said, it's more than just the candy they'll be chewing, all those heroes in the hospital. They'll be feeling the love. And that's life transforming. And I'm excited that our church is in this business of life transformation. And now we've got this extra little tag that is very important. We're committed to growing younger as we do it. So everything we do is going to be measured against its potential not only to transform lives, but especially younger lives who are disproportionately de-churched in America. I'll be honest with you, some of you are more Christ-like than others. It's so fun to be able to say that. Because it's not a bad thing. When you think about it, it means that some of you can mentor others. You're further along in the spiritual formation, in the spiritual development, the spiritual maturity, right? The evolution of character. You're more Christ-like. But you get confused with Jesus all the time. Oh, there's Jesus again. We got some of you out there. A lot of you. And then others, maybe not so much. And that's okay. I want you to hear that. You're welcome here. Because we can help each other. As we become more patient and kind and loving and forgiving, it's contagious. And people want to be a part of it. A great church is made up of Christ-like servants, not consumers. And if you don't feel like being called a servant, take it up with Jesus, all right? Don't take it up with me. Obviously, many of you have embraced the idea of serving, whether it's behind a rake or behind a stack of weekly mailings. Can I just have those of you who do the weekly mailings? I'm talking about the ones of you who sit in the choir every week and fold and put stamps on such things and order it. And can you just stand? Can you stand if you're able to? I just want to recognize you. Come on. You know who you are. There they are. Bless you. I'd have all the guys who stand behind, who serve behind rakes stand, but I recognize you a lot. There are others who serve behind cotton candy booths. I don't have time to have you all stand. I'm sorry. You know who you are. And then you got all those pepper belly people, right? And then you got those singing in the choir, and those building habitat houses, and those collecting candy for hospital heroes, and those who'll soon be adorning this sanctuary with beautiful Advent decorations, right? And then you got those who stick around all day to fix the plumbing in the sacristy, and those of you who are engaged in service, you get it. You know that you become more magnetic and more beautiful and more joyful and more impactful at transforming lives around you the more you serve, the more you risk loving others. Now, Jesus' disciples were first called Christians at a place called Antioch, and this is really important because they didn't give themselves that designation. We call ourselves the United Church of Christ, right? Manhattan Beach Community Church, United Church of Christ. These people didn't call themselves Christians. They didn't give themselves that designation. The very first Christians, well, that happened as a result of other people observing them and saying, they look like Christ. And so they got the title Christians, little Christs. They look like Jesus. It was intended really to be a derogatory thing, a description, rather than a title. And the same is true today. People expect Christians to behave like Jesus. What a concept. And the greatest way to do that, and so many of you already know this, I'm preaching to the choir literally and figuratively, is to be a servant, not a consumer. So today's story unearths 6 wonderful principles. I'm going to blow through them very quickly. I originally got this idea from Rick Warren's book, and then I narrowed it down and made it my own. And so you get to hear 6 principles that you will not be able to see on a screen. Today's parable begins with Matthew 25:14. For it is as if a man going on a journey summoned his servants and entrusted his property to them. Did you catch it? Yeah. It's the master's property. He merely entrusts it. My son was asking for a watch for Christmas, and I said, honey, I don't wear watches anymore. I've got 4 really good watches that I can give you. My mind is, and then I said, you're going to get them anyway, you know. Might as well give them to you now while you can use them. This idea that these are my watches, no, they're going to be around a lot longer than I will. And all the things that we think are ours now, we don't get to take them beyond our human life. They stay back. Whose are they? Well, the scripture says they're God's. Principle number 1, everything we have belongs to God. Deuteronomy 24:1, to the Lord your God belong the earth and all that is in it. That includes a Corvette, Rob. And I'm telling you, that's an amazing car. I got a ride in it this week. I'm not quite ready for Depends, but when I go with Rob, I might be. Psalm 24:1, the earth is the Lord's and all it contains. The next verse states, to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, and to each according to his ability. Then he went away. Matthew 25:15. Principle number 2, God has designated us for a particular service. God doesn't give us all the same talent. We have different abilities. I grew up in a musical family. All 9 of us love to sing. We play a variety of instruments as well. And when I grew up, I assumed every family did that. You know, we were like the Sound of Music family. We just everything. You know, even going to my grandparents' house in Kalamazoo, which was about an hour away, we would sing the whole way. Mom would have us do different parts. Inchworm, measuring the miracle. And we do harmonies and all that. And then I married into a family that doesn't sing. And that became very apparent to me on the first birthday celebration that we had together. And I was like, oh my goodness. Some people sing and other people make a joyful noise. The parable continues. The one who had received the 5 talents went off at once and traded with them and made 5 more talents. In the same way, the one who had 2 talents made 2 more talents, but the one who had received the 1 talent went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. And after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So while we do, principle 3, while we do have a choice, God holds each of us accountable for how we choose to use what has been entrusted to us for a season while we have breath, our time, our talent, our treasure. Romans 14:12 makes it clear. So then, each of us will be accountable to God. Now, some folks in the church might have the mistaken notion that true spirituality has nothing to do with money. Take that up with Jesus. That's all I'm going to say. Take it up with Jesus. Jesus has a very different opinion of that. He sees money and spirituality as being very much connected. He equates, actually, how we handle our money with the quality of our spiritual lives. And this is a biblical truth that many fail to grasp. They long for the joy, of an intimate relationship with God, but they're stingy. Right? And so they mistakenly think that their poor stewardship has nothing to do with their state of spiritual wellness. And we find just the opposite is true as we read further. Matthew 25, 20 to 21. Don't look up at the screen. Then the one who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more talents, saying, Master, you handed over to me 5 talents. See, I have 5 more talents. And his master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy servant. You've been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. And then the same with the guy with the 2 talents, right? He says, well done. I'll put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. And it's interesting that the servant who had been given 2 talents received the identical reward as the one who had been given 5 talents. So what's the principle here? What am I gaining out of it? God rewards faithfulness regardless of the amount. Some of you can give over $30,000 a year to our budget, to our church, to God. Thank you. Some of you give $20,000 and $25,000. I can't do that. Maybe you can't either. But that's not the point. The point is, can you be faithful with what God has entrusted to you and me? Can we? Unfortunately, the servant who received the least was not faithful. Matthew 25, 22 to 27. Then the one who had received the 1 talent also came forward, saying, Master, I knew that you were a harsh man. Can you imagine? I knew that you were a harsh man. Then he goes on to just dig himself into a hole, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not gather. So I was afraid. Key point, fear. If I give this, will I outlive my money? Fear. What will happen if I become generous? Fear. And I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. There's a little dirt on the candy, but wipe it off maybe. But this master replied, You wicked and lazy servant. You knew, did you, that I reap where I did not sow, and you gather where I did not scatter? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received what was my own with interest. Principle 4. God despises wasted potential. It is cringeworthy to hear how this guy projects his own baggage onto his master. Right? And he blames him instead of owning his own reticence to risk investing what he's been given. Instead, he attacks his boss's character. He questions his boss's motives rather than taking a really good, hard look at himself. That's hard to do. Our AA friends call it taking a fearless moral inventory, and it's the beginning to their life transformation. Jesus has this to say about his character. He's a lazy, wicked person who's frozen in fear. Ouch. Fear of failure? Maybe. Fear of what other people will think? Maybe. Fear of trusting the good intentions and the moral character of his boss? Maybe. What's Jesus saying? I think he's saying that we can't play it safe and please God. There, I said it. 2 Timothy 1:7. For God did not give us a spirit of cowardice, but rather a spirit of power and of love and of self-discipline. The parable goes on. We're up to principle 5. Maybe some of you read the AARP article this week on the superagers. Use it or lose it. This principle applies to all areas of stewardship, including how we steward our minds. More frequent participation in cognitively stimulating activities is associated, this is scientifically proven, to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease, So if you've been waiting for another reason to get involved in a Bible study, to use your noggin, here it is. We have several super agers in this church. I'm not going to embarrass you by pointing them out, but I could. Because I know how old you are. I've been to your birthday parties. But they're in their 80s and 90s, and they're still sharp as ever. They retain their memories. They have youthful energy. They're the ones that you'll see up on stage or bending over, fixing, raking or pulling weeds or cutting stained glass. They're incredible. They put me to shame, and I'm 62. They have youthful energy, and they enjoy life deeply, and you know who you are. And the ones who aren't know who they are, and you're jealous. Jesus' parable of the talents ends with these words from Matthew 25, 29 to 30. For to all those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. As for this worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Here's the final principle. Principle number 6. The rewards of serving God immeasurably outweigh the sacrifices. Ask any of those people, those super agers, those ones that 5 of them will be recognizing. We have 5 honorees today in our Leadership Sunday. After lunch, there'll be music, and we'll be calling them up on stage, and there'll be photos of all these wonderful things they do, not to glorify them, but to glorify Christ in them. See, there's Jesus, there's Jesus, there's Jesus. If you're in charge of many things, chances are you've been faithful with a few things. And if you're in charge of very little right now in this church, you're not on a board or a committee or in the choir, maybe you don't feel engaged at all. Maybe the best that you can do right now is to come and worship, or worship where you are on the couch or in a chair at home. I don't know, but if you're in charge of very little right now, I just want to say, don't worry. Don't worry. Just be faithful with the few things that you have. Even our homebound members have things they can do, and Jody's going to be working with you on writing cards and helping our prayer ministry and so many other ways that you can engage. And God will reward you as well. Hudson Taylor, I would put this on the screen, but I can't. All right, I got to be quiet about the screen. We'll get that motor eventually. Small things are small things, but faithfulness with a small thing is a big thing. So no matter how small you think your contribution is, it's a big thing if you're faithful with what God has entrusted to you. Our church has begun a high-risk adventure. We're making changes deemed necessary for our church to grow younger. And remember, everything that we have is God's. God has a unique service for each of you. God will hold each of us accountable. God despises wasted potential, so use it or lose it. And remember, you can't outgive God. The benefits of cultivating a life of service far outweigh the sacrifices. Amen.